everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I am your director of fun and games on this Thanksgiving Eve Wednesday. Joining me tonight, it's Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. PHLY Flyers Pregame is presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY Hockey to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. Charlie, a rare pregame appearance tonight.
Indeed.
I simply cannot believe, of all the road games you go to, you couldn't get yourself out to Nashville? Come on, man.
It's a one-gamer, and it's the night before Thanksgiving. Travel's going to be murder. It's not like they really practice in Nashville. Nashville's a blast of a city to go to, and I've definitely prioritized it in the past, but this is like the worst possible day for them to be in Nashville from a, it being worthwhile to actually cover this game in person type of thing. So I'm here, and I'm getting to do pregame with you, which ain't a bad consolation prize, just saying.
I'm really happy to hear you say that. Yeah, Charlie, I drove 295 a couple of times today, and it was freaking madness. So can't imagine what actual travel would be like out there. But the Flyers are in Nashville, and man, Nashville stinks. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But we want to start with the Flyers lineup today. I saw Jackie Spiegel from the Inquirer tweeted out per John Tortorella. It's going to be Kolosov and net, and everything else remains the same from the last game, Charlie. So Egor Zamula stays out. I guess that turnover and whatever the hell happened in the corner with Helge Grans, not enough to send him back to Lehigh Valley, at least before the holiday. What do we think about keeping the lineup the same?
I'm not surprised that they kept the lineup the same overall, just because John Tortorella was pretty happy with how they played against Vegas. Obviously, they lose the game, they blow the lead. But as he mentioned, and I talked about it on post game after Monday's game, he basically said that aside from 6 or 7, I think he said 7 or 8 minutes in the second period, he really liked the way they played. He thought in the third period, even though they give up the lead, it wasn't like they were turtling. They were pushing, they generated chances. And then over the final 7-8 minutes of the third period, they were controlling play. They nearly scored quite a few times to end that game before it went to overtime. So not shocked that there aren't wholesale changes to the lines. I think he's liking what he saw mostly in that Vegas game. The one surprise, and I do agree with you, Bill, I am mildly surprised that Helge Grans is still in. And maybe it's as simple as Jamie Drysdale, they just still feel he's not ready. And honestly, Grans, despite the fact that he had clear mistakes on that shift that led to the game-tying goal, he's still playing better overall than Egor Zamula has been. So maybe that's the calculation, and maybe it's as simple as when Drysdale is good to go and he's cleared, that's when Grans will go down. But I did agree with you, and I even put it in my column after the game, that if you're looking for a reason to send him down, that game, particularly that shift, very much provided it. I think it's interesting that they're giving him another shot. It really does speak to the fact that they have legitimately liked what they've seen in Helge Grans. I think it's actually a cool opportunity for him, because we're going to get to see how he responds. I'm thinking back to Andre. Andre has that terrible game against the Carolina Hurricanes, not the most recent game, but the one in Carolina.
First Carolina game, yeah.
Yeah, where he messed up a bunch of times. He toe picked the one time on the transition rush to falls over, and Carolina scores. That was a horrendous game. That was Andre looking like he did last season when he had those 4 games, just looked totally outmatched. Then what happens? They throw Andre right back in. He plays a good game against Tampa, and then he plays a great game against the Panthers. So he showed he can respond. Now we're going to see if Grans can respond. Now, granted, Grans isn't in the same kind of primary role that Andre has pushed himself into. He's more in a traditional third pair role, won't get a ton of minutes. But at the very least, we're going to learn something about Grans. We're going to learn how he can respond to adversity, because he obviously made some big mistakes, especially on that game-tying goal. We're going to see how he does in what he hopes is going to be a bounce-back game. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and I thought maybe they would be looking for a reason to send him down, just because, yeah, Grans' first game up. I think he played the second or third most minutes on the blue line. They were really using him. He stood out. And since then, I don't know if he's been bad, but he just hasn't played a ton, hasn't really been like, oh, did you see Grans on that shift? Just kind of blended in a little bit, and maybe that's kind of the player he is overall. But you look at the minutes and go, oh, he played 12 minutes the other night. Like maybe, but I do kind of like the idea of, well, if Drysdale isn't ready to go and we have to keep him up here anyway as an insurance policy, why not use him and see how it goes?
Yeah.
And yeah, when Drysdale's back, we can put him in there. We can get Zamula back in, whatever it might be. That's the thing I wanted to talk about more than anything is Egor Zamula. We've talked about how maybe the organization values him a little more than fans probably do, but they seem pretty content to sit him right now. Hasn't played since the last Carolina game on 11/20. I think this is his third game in a row out of the lineup. Well, is that surprising to you, or is it just like, okay, we're giving someone else a look right now, like what they did with Kolosov when Fedotov was struggling?
It's not terribly surprising because a 3-game absence really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. They just sat Morgan Frost for 3 games, and then I guess the fourth because they had to throw him in that one game because Sean Couturier just couldn't play. And they clearly do, as much as we joke about it, as much as you in particular joke about it, like they do still value Morgan Frost. They're not going to trade him away for a ham sandwich. They still think he can be part of this, at least for this year. So if they're willing to scratch him, they're certainly going to be willing to scratch Egor Zamula for 3 games, who certainly doesn't play as important of a role when he's at his best compared to Morgan Frost, so they're also willing to scratch. I would say that if we're getting to mid next week, like if let's say he obviously doesn't play in this game. Let's say he doesn't play either the Black Friday game or the Saturday game in St. Louis. Let's say he misses 3 straight from there, and then that comeback game, what I think they're playing Florida at home next Wednesday, if he's still not in the lineup for that game, then I start to think, is he just shuffled out of the rotation? Because John Tortorella has straight up said on multiple occasions when we've talked to him that we're not going to forget about Zamula, that we still value his development. He's going to play. He might sit sometimes because, well, quite frankly, he hasn't played well for most of the season. But he's not a guy that they're going to park the same way they're willing to park an Erik Johnson. So 3 games, no, I'm not terribly shocked by it. I feel like this falls into the, give him a reset, give him a chance to skate with the coaches and just try to, fix his game. I thought it was trending upwards a little bit prior to these most recent scratches, but whatever. Give him a chance to kind of just watch for a bit. But if you start getting into 6, 7, 8 games, then you start to wonder, is he just falling out of their plan entirely? I just don't think we're there yet, I guess is my answer.
I'm going to talk a bit more about the lineup, Charlie, but first, you mentioned Black Friday. Flyers have that traditional Black Friday game against the Rangers, but if you're looking to celebrate Black Friday with PHLY, you got to do it with our Black Friday sale. 30% off pretty much everything, up to 75% off sale items, but that starts Friday for the general public. For our diehards, for the people who can't miss a Charlie O'Connor article, for the people who have to be in on everything here at PHLY, it's Black Friday for you right now. Head over to allphly.com, hit the merch tab, and you can get your discount, 30% off discount code. You need to enter this one. It's Black Friday-Diehard. The automatic, starting Friday, it's an automatic discount code. But right now, for the diehards, head over there. But everybody gets their discount, and we have all sorts of great stuff. You know about the PHLY stuff. I like the hats a lot, the hoodies. But it's all about michkov, right? It's the michkov Mania shirt. It's the Mad Russian hoodie and shirt. All of that available right now. 30% off for diehards. Black Friday sale starts Friday for the general public, and you can get your 30% off then as well, Charlie. And since we're talking about Matvei Michkov, he remains paired with Owen Tippett on his wing. And maybe this is one of those, like I say about the centers and pretty much the whole lineup, there ain't no right answers. Like Morgan Frost, I like. It's a good idea. Like at least their skill sets, you want to see what those two can do together. I just see Tippett as a guy who needs to take like 12 shots and hopefully like 4 or 5 of them hit the net. That's a lot of touches for one dude on one line. Paired with Matvei Michkov, who should have the puck on his stick in the offensive zone almost exclusively and ready until he's ready to pass or shoot. Honestly, it's like Jackie Moon Just all right, send it back to me. Send it back to me. Like that's what I want to see. Do you like those two together, or do you just think like it doesn't matter?
Well, I don't. I don't like those two together. I don't think it's a good long-term fit. At least it hasn't been so far. That said, and this is something I will say because I mentioned it in my column, and I think I mentioned it in post game that I didn't particularly care for Owen Tippett's game on Monday. I obviously go back and I rewatch the games because I track zone entries at 5-on-5. When I went back and rewatched the game, I liked his play a lot more. I thought he did more. He was more impactful than I thought he was watching in real time. He just did much better things. He was part of that the goal. I believe it was the first goal. He has a nice forecheck. Like he did more on the rewatch for me than he did when I was watching him in real time. And maybe that's the thought process from Tortorella is, look, obviously most of the season they haven't got the best version of Owen Tippett, but maybe Tortorella, like me, went back through the tape, liked what he saw. So he's thinking, okay, maybe something's starting to click there. I don't even think it's chemistry with Michkov. He's historically had good chemistry with Frost. So that's there. I don't think it's really chemistry with Michkov, but like, hey, if Tippett might be on the verge of something, let's just keep him where he is.
With it. Yeah.
And hope that he can build off of what, in retrospect, when I went back and rewatched, was I wouldn't say a great game, but it was a more promising game than I thought it was in real time.
I thought a lot of people were kind of down on his game. I don't think you were alone on Monday, Charlie. But the work to set up, like, yes, Morgan Frost gets the tip, Ristolainen takes the shot. Everything that happened from like the defensive blue line up until Tippett hands it off, coming around the net and getting it to the other point to Ristolainen, like that was all Owen Tippett, like the entire way. So I thought he did tremendous work on that play and then maybe tailed off the rest of the game. I don't know if they're a long-term fit, but you're also trying to get Frost going, trying to just get some normalcy with this lineup, have something to build off of. I guess if it's not a long-term thing, it's not really worth like worrying about, but it's just one of those things I look at and go, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Bill, a lot in this lineup doesn't make sense. That's why we're constantly talking about what they can do to change it.
Yes. And listen, and we're going to talk about trade rumors a little. Something needs to happen kind of soon, but we'll talk about that. But first, Coots and TK remain a pair. Farabee stays with them after I thought he played a really strong game. No idea how he didn't score. And like you said in postgame, listen, playing well and almost scoring, that's great. But at a certain point, you need to put the puck in the net. You need to produce points, or what the hell are you doing out there? True, but I think that was the best Joel Farabee has looked this season, so he stays up there. I think that line works.
Sure. You know, if they play the same way they played on Monday, yeah. Now, the question is, can they do it again? Maybe. Joel Farabee, I agree, had a strong game. He didn't score, but he had a strong game. And as I mentioned in postgame, that's the kind of performance where the process is strong enough where if he does that in 5 straight games, he's going to rack up a lot of points. The real issue, though, is can he do it in 5 straight games? Like, or is it just that was his real good game out of, 8, and he just happened not to be able to score in it? Like, that's my concern. If he comes out again tonight and plays the same way that he played on Monday and has the same level of impact, he's going to get a goal and a couple assists. He will, because he played that well. He played well enough to have multiple points in that game. It's just, will he play as well as he played on Monday? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the thing with Farabee, backing up these performances, having them multiple in a row, keeping that consistency. It's what's frustrated us about him. So hopefully he can keep that going. All right, Charlie. Yeah, you and I were texting earlier, and you were just like, yeah, I guess today is the day. And really this week, the people who want their trade rumors, they're going to get them one way or another.
They're getting them.
I do think it does seem to make sense that suddenly we're getting a lot of at least potential news, like, oh, something's happening. Like, one, you have the whole Jiricek situation, and like there has to be resolution of that at some point. A couple of coaches get fired. Everyone knows what it means. Tomorrow, like I said, is Thanksgiving. Everyone knows what it means to be in or out of a playoff spot on Thanksgiving. Like, what you are now is probably what you're going to be, unless something really, really great or really, really bad happens for you. So teams are posturing to kind of get into that spot over the next couple of weeks, definitely before Christmas and everything. What have you made of the rumors? Like, oh, Danny, getting a bunch of calls. Like, what's your reaction when you hear that stuff?
Well, I guess my initial reaction is I'll believe that trades are going to go down at this time of year when I see it, because
We have seen a few.
Because they just don't like it feels like this last week has been the hockey media trying to make the end of November into the trade deadline, and that strikes me as a little much. I'm not saying there's not conversations. I just am always going to be a bit skeptical that a bunch of a deluge of trades are going to happen around Thanksgiving and the beginning of December. It just, there isn't a lot of historical precedent for it. That said, I mean, yeah, I've been poking around. The guy I was poking around initially on was Morgan Frost. And more or less what I've heard about Frost, I did an article on allphly.com about it. I believe it came out yesterday for diehards only. So if you're a diehard, read it. If you're not, why aren't you? Become a diehard. But anyway, in that article, I broke down kind of everything I've heard, which is talking with people I know around the league. It's not a case of the Flyers are desperately shopping Morgan Frost. So if you think that like they're just trying to get rid of him for anything, that's not the case. Is he coming up in conversations? Sure, because he just got scratched for 4 games by the coach who scratched him for 11 games the year before and scratched him in his hometown the year before that. So, of course, teams are going to give Briere a call and be like, hey, so what's the deal with that Morgan Frost? You know, we might have a fit there if you're trying to get rid of him. I don't think the Flyers are trying to get rid of him. That said, I think there is a growing concern within the Flyers organization that he just may not fit long-term, especially with the emergence of Jet Luchenko and the fact that, like, Sean Couturier ain't a 1C. So, like, are you really going to commit long-term to Morgan Frost and have your centers be locked into being Morgan Frost, Jet Luchenko, and Sean Couturier, unless you are convinced that Jet Luchenko is a dominant 1C right off the bat? I don't think that's a great 1-2-3 punch, especially if you're trying to contend for cups. So, to me, the Flyers are listening on Frost, not because they want to get rid of him now, because I think right now they know they need someone with skill down the middle to play with Michkov, and they're hoping that Frost gets it going. But they have to listen because it's getting harder and harder to envision how he's part of this 4 years down the road. That's where I think their heads are at with Frost. Now, with everybody else, like, they're taking calls. Like, the one guy who I do not think there is much to is Scott Laughton, because that came up from a Darren Dreger report from last night, I believe. And the report, like, that just struck me as someone saying a name. Like, hey, this will be something that'll get people talking. All Dreger said in that report was teams like Scott Laughton are calling on him. I got news for you. Teams have liked Scott Laughton for the past 4 years and been calling on him for 4 years. Like, that's not news. Will the Flyers be willing to move him? If they will, it's not going to be now. It would be at the deadline or in the offseason. I don't think they would trade him at the end of November. Now, the other guys who have been named, Ristolainen, yeah, they're listening. And I think Ristolainen, there's a real good chance he's traded at the deadline. But unless somebody blows them away with an offer, I don't think they're going to trade him now. Now, if somebody calls up and says, here's a first-round pick and you don't have to retain any salary, then sure, they'll trade him. But barring that, I don't see it. The guys that were interesting that have popped up that I do think, like, if there was going to be a move that happens now, and to be clear, I don't think there is if I had to bet money, but Joel Farabee, number one, because there just feels like smoke there. There does feel like something there where there might be just a concern that maybe he needs a change of scenery, something like that, you know, and teams are interested because he's a good player with potential. The fact that Tyson Forrester's name has come up has been interesting to me. I don't think they're going to trade him, but maybe that's meant to be a little bit of like, hey, pick your game up, kid, and maybe you're not as secure here as you think. Those two names were way more interesting to me than Laughton and Risto, because I have a good handle on where those guys stand, and I did a ton of reporting on Frost, so I think I know where he stands. It's Farabee and Forrester that are like, the fact that their names are coming up, it's interesting. And again, to be clear, I am not expecting a trade to happen, because trades don't happen in late November. At least a ton of them don't. But it's interesting that so many names are popping up. It is interesting.
It is interesting. The one thing that, like, I've always thought, like, Frost, like, when Jet Luchenko made the team, and they're like, well, we really don't have any centers, and that was part of it. Like, that tells me you're at least valuing something this season. I don't know exactly what, but this season isn't just a throwaway for you. And that means, like, yeah, Morgan Frost might not fit long term, but right now we don't have anybody else who can do what he does, so we kind of need him. So I don't expect that to happen soon, but as we get closer and closer to his contract expiring, like, what are we going to do? Sign him long term? Why? The thing I think, and we can talk more about this in post game, we have more time, and honestly, that gets podcasted and people can listen to it. And when you use the word trade in a podcast, it blows up. So I want to do that more. But I want to get your opinion on just this one thing. You said Risto probably closer to the deadline. My thing is, he's playing really well right now. And since he's become a Flyer, he's missed about 30% of the games. That's a lot of games.
Yeah.
I don't want maybe our most tradable asset, our highest value trade asset, to get hurt between now and March 8th or whenever the hell the deadline is? Like, that's a long time from now.
Yeah, it's fair. And it's a fair concern. What I will say, and like, one thing I want to make clear, because I think some people take my like tossing cold water on the idea of trades as kind of like, oh, Charlie just doesn't like fun or whatever. The reason why trades tend not to happen at this point of the year is because it's the classic idea of deadline spur action. And right now, yeah, the Flyers might be getting calls on Ristolainen. I bet they are. I bet they've at least gotten a few, maybe even a couple with some tangible offers. But the offers aren't that good. Like, that's why a trade hasn't been agreed to with Ristolainen yet, is because, yeah, they might have gotten a couple offers, but it might be like, hey, yeah, retain 50% of his salary and we'll give you a third-round pick. And Danny's like, nah, I ain't doing that. I'll hold out until the deadline when everyone's more desperate, and hopefully I get a better offer. Like, that's why teams wait to trade guys, because there's an expectation, and it generally speaking is true, that the offers get better as more teams enter the bidding and as the deadline is coming, because teams just feel more urgency. Now, when do guys actually get traded early? Like, I'm thinking Zadorov last year. Yeah. Like, why do guys actually get traded early? It's either A, they have made it abundantly clear through either public or private channels that they desperately want out of their situation, or B, actually, the team that's trading for that guy is willing to pay a deadline level price. Now, if the Flyers get a deadline level offer for Ristolainen, I don't think they would hesitate to trade him. I'm just skeptical they will in late November.
Yeah, then that, like, last year Zadorov called out his teammates, and then his agent asked for a trade, and the Calgary locker room was like, we don't like this guy. So it was kind of like, well, a lot of things have to happen in a short period of time here. All right. Just like that, we only have a few minutes left in the show. So I want to get to the pregame bets. This pregame picks segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, well, we're starting with old reliable. We're taking the over. It's a Flyers game, and Sam Ersson is in net. So we're going to bet the over. Flyers, they allow the 5th most goals per game in the league. Nashville gives up the 10th most goals per game. A couple of leaky teams here, whether it's the defense or goaltending or both. Neither offense is particularly good, especially the Predators, kind of bad. But I'm betting some of their good players can take advantage of Alexei Kolosov. And the Flyers offense, it's been visually better lately, I'll say. So let's take that over. It's even money. Bet $1, win $1. Over 6 tonight. So we need 7 goals. And I have come full circle on Travis Sanheim. I guess 180. Full circle would be back where you started from.
Yeah.
Travis Sanheim over 0.5 point at plus money. At least 1 point in 4 of the last 6. You know he's going to be on the ice a ton. And if this is going to be a higher scoring game, like I think it is, I'll take the decent plus money on Sanheim's prop. He's the team's 3rd leading scorer. I bet you he comes away with a point, and I'm willing to get that plus 132 to get it. So those are the pregame picks tonight. And while we're talking about stuff I'm selling you, honestly, never trail my picks. They're bad. But do trail me on the way to Montreal. That's
yeah.
right. This is going to be a ton of fun. April 4th to the 7th, PHLY road trip with Philly Sports Trips. We're heading to Montreal to take on those dirty Habs. It's going to be a must for Flyers fans of all ages. Experience the thrill of hockey in its birthplace while cheering on the Flyers against the Canadiens. Trip packages include optional round-trip direct flights from Philadelphia to Montreal, a comfortable 3-night hotel stay at the Hyatt Centric Montreal, meet and greet with Brian Prop, group tickets to the game, all-inclusive tailgate, and much more. Plus, you'll have this dedicated team of trip coordinators on hand to ensure everything runs smoothly so you can enjoy the rich history and vibrant atmosphere of Montreal. I'm going to be there. Charlie's going to be there. Hinks is going. This is going to be an awesome trip. You're going to want to head out with us. Come on out to Montreal when we fly up there to visit those damn Canadiens.
Yeah, come hang out with us. I love Montreal, one of my favorite cities in North America.
Charlie's been putting it over pretty hard lately.
Yeah, big Montreal fan, and I can show everybody some fun spots. It'll be a good time.
Outstanding. All right, well, Charlie, even though he's a Nashville fan, he's not in Nashville tonight. We already went through that. But the Flyers are there, and man, the team that spent like $1 billion this offseason, it doesn't look like money well spent right now, Charlie. They're 31st overall in the league. That's second worst. They're second to last in the West. That's right. The only team behind them in the whole league is Chicago. This is how's this even possible? Like, I realize maybe we overrated, like, yeah, Steven Stamkos, big name, not what he was 8 years ago. Jonathan Marchessault, same thing. He's 34 years old. I get it. But they have some good players. It just isn't working for them. UC Saros, he's at 915. It's not like he's been bad.
He's been very good.
Yeah, like I picked them. I should have told Bryn to grab this.
I was going to say,
they were
Bill, when you said maybe we overrated them, I think you should change that to maybe you overrated
the royal
them.
we. Nobody thought they were going to be 31st in the league, Charlie.
Fair. Didn't you pick them to win the President's Trophy?
I did pick them to win the President's Trophy. That's where I was going.
See, this is why you don't trust Bill's bets.
Listen. Hey, Logan Stankoven has a chance here.
It's fair. It's fair.
I'm rooting against my own bet. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Now, Nashville they have no centers, and that's obviously a problem. We're seeing it play out here in Philly, but is that just what it comes down to? Like, they have a bunch of names, but no true, like, first-line talent?
I don't think so, because they didn't have guys like that last year either. Like, they are theoretically a more talented team this year. Like, the only guy on their team who I view 100% to be a first line forward is Phil Forsberg. He's great. And obviously Roman Josi is freaking awesome. And UC Saros is a great goalie. That said, you look at the rest of their forward group, at least last season, you're like, yeah, it's Phil Forsberg, and like Ryan O'Reilly's still good, but he's not as good as he used to be. You thought, okay, well, they add Stamkos, even if he's not as good as he used to be. Marchessault, yeah, Brady Shea. You're like, okay, yeah, maybe they'll get there. I just think this is a team that is not clicking as a group. I really think that's what it comes down to. And I have to think at some point they will, but the Flyers are fortunate that they are getting to face Nashville while they're still kind of a mess, which hopefully, if you're a Flyers fan, hopefully you'll watch them take advantage.
Hopefully there was no group concert canceled that fires them up before tonight's game, because that's what happened last year. All right. We have apparently 3 super chats on the pregame. People love Charlie, so let's get to it. From Will Wadsworth, do y'all think we have enough good defensive depth with Andre stepping up to potentially make a trade D for a center?
Well, it depends on who you're trading. To me, if you're making a trade for the kinds of centers that fans want, maybe you're trading Cam York. So that's the question, really. It's Cam York or Andre. And I don't think Andre has built up his stock enough that he could be the big piece in a deal like that. So it's basically, are you willing to trade Cam York? For me, I'm not there yet. I really like Cam York. I like the fact that he could be, I think, a key part of this defense for the next decade. by the same token, if you want to get a star level center, you have to give to get. So it would really depend on the guy. Like, let me put it this way. I wouldn't trade Cam York for Trevor Zegras, because to me, Zegras is now a question mark and York is a sure thing. And there's a lot more worlds, I think, where Cam York proves to be the better player than Zegras is. And then I'm not willing to take that potential downgrade. But if you're saying trade Cam York for an established top 6 center in his prime, then it just depends on the guy.
Drysdale for Jiricek. That's the defensive trade they need to make.
If they could make that trade, I'd have no problems with it. It's the guy I want. That's the guy I wanted in that position anyway over Gauthier.
Well, there you go. It all works out in the end.
You're basically turning Gauthier into Jiricek, which is the guy who I wanted them to take at 5th overall instead of Gauthier in the first place.
It's all coming up, Charlie. All right. This next one from Gary B. The perennial forever Flyer, Lotz Prob only being offered a 4th-round pick.
Nah, I think there are better offers than that.
Teams really like him, and they know the Flyers. That's the thing, is the value the Flyers have established. Like, they believe he's worth a ton. So you wouldn't call and be like, hey, the guy who you said that we have to overpay for, you're not even going to pick up the phone? Yeah, 4th-round pick. Like, I just feel like that would be a waste of everyone's time. It's just like, Scott Lawton is going to play 1,000 games as a Flyer, probably 1,200. That's all there is to it. All right. The next from Spiral Out. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Go Flyers. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Spiral Out. And finally, it was 3, not 4.
It was
okay.
3.
Yeah, I can count. I can count to 3. All right.
You're just giving more and more reasons for people to trust your bets.
Yeah. That is all the time we have on PHLY Flyers Pregame, brought to you by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY Hockey to get Coors Light delivered or to find a store near you. Charlie and I will be back with postgame as soon as this goes final, so make sure you tune in right here to the YouTube page for that. Until postgame, I'm Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Let's go Flyers.